Greetings. This is Doc Ock here, coming at you live and direct from Black Facts Headquarters Central with another installment of Doc Ock at noon and 9. Proverb for the day: when the mouse laughs at the cat, there's a hole nearby. When the mouse laughs at the cat, guaranteed there's a hole nearby. It's a proverb from Nigeria. And to follow that up, we're going to follow that up with a poem from the mind of Eugene Redmond from his book, Eye of the Ceiling, selected poems of Eugene Redmond's poems. So let's see what he's got here today. This one is called Lyrics for Leon. Lyrics for Leon Thomas, and spirits known and unknown. Spirits known and unknown. Song stitched to mend, encoding a cry, a call, a blues epic, turning song into corduroy sky. You birth a feathery voice, scream, airborne in ridges of an African overcast, brick-throated balladeer decoding hieroglyphics in the growing, in the script of ancient drum voices. Song stitched to mend, leaping Leon, erupting into rhapsodic mountains. Ooh la boo, 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 ooh la boo. Oola oola, oola oola, oola oola, oodly booey, oola boo. Torch notes, flame throat, raging in phonic force, tree tunes and fire blades that chop and copper crust the corduroy sky of song. Song stitched to mend, solo and echo child. Seed spring of sound, eloping, groping with demons of coastal storms, noiseless mistresses of docks and deserts, river rhythm exercising spirits known and unknown, moving up, down ladders of sun streams, chorusing, caressing stars, making tones galactic, orchestrating initial buzzes and bums. Song stitched to mend, Lyrics for Leon. Lyrics for Leon. For Leon Thomas. See what I'm going to do for tomorrow. Okay, now let's move on. Returning to our story. Reflections on the life of Dr. Edward W. Crosby. So he's in the Army now, and he's talking about visiting with Shirley. Where's she at? Here we go. There they go. On the phone together, lovers speaking through the old wires. Little wire transfer there. Yeah. So Shirley and I walked back to where she was staying, at her professor's house. She introduced me to her professor, showed me to my room. I went right to sleep. She and I ate breakfast in the morning before she went to class, and I caught an early bus to D.C. Once back in D.C. and traveling back to Fort Belvoir, I also whispered softly to myself, quote, Crosby, you cannot allow yourself to lose that woman. You have a history of going off course. Take care. One more slip can sink your ship. End quote. I appeared in my supply class on Monday, still musing the way my visit with Shirley had turned out. The longer I stayed in supply school, the more I learned about military record keeping, which at the time was still maintained by hand. Yes, the military did have access to IBM's Hollerith machines and the IBM card punch system, but in 1952, it apparently had not yet been effectively installed throughout the military command. And even if it had, it was no match for today's instantaneous computer-based record-keeping processes. While in training to become an engineer supply specialist, the trainers made us especially aware the 201 form that followed soldiers throughout their career in the military from induction to discharge was the only extant copy the U.S. Army had, and we supply specialists should be very careful in handling and filing this form, for it, along with its attachments, contained a soldier's complete military. This permanent copy is kept in each soldier's company commander's office, wherever he or she is stationed, until either one is reassigned or discharged, at which time the 201 is sent to St. Louis, Missouri, where all official military records are filed. Upon discharge, the soldier is presented with a copy of its first or top page in case he or she needed it to apply for the GI Bill or for medical services. I also learned in 1952 how the EMOS, Entry Military Occupation Specialty, draftees received upon induction are their permanent EMOS. Right, how the EMOS draftees received upon induction are their permanent EMOS. In other words, Entry Military Occupation Specialty. So whatever specialty you get when you come in, you're going to maintain that throughout. Most draftees received an EMOS, placing them permanently in combat readiness. Our supply specialist trainers suggested we, as soon as possible, have our EMOS changed to supply clerk or another allowable specialty that placed them far away from the front lines. This could be accomplished by simply applying for an EMOS change. I cannot remember at this late date exactly what my entry EMOS was. However, my 201 does indicate I did on July 1st, 1954, have my EMOS changed from 3835 to 1583, Engineer Supply Service. EMOS. After Engineer Supply Specialist training graduated me and the other trainees, it was time to receive our next duty assignment. This was nail-biting time for everybody completing basic or advanced training, dreaded being sent to the frozen chosen. Now, he's mentioned that more than one time, and I'm still not clear on exactly what the frozen chosen are, but I have an idea it's not good. As each soldier's name was called and he rose to accept his assignment, every soldier present was hopeful he would be sent to someplace other than where we had expected he would be sent. Some soldiers were sent to Europe. Most were sent to Korea. When my turn came, I walked up to the assignment desk as if here in the world. That was all front, for I knew I was going to be sent to Korea. Or maybe I would look out and be sent to Japan, close to Korea, but Japan. Providence had another role for me to play in my nation's military and for some of my soldier comrades in supply specialist training. I was constantly not equipped for war, both mentally and training-wise. The Korean conflict ended shortly after most of my supply specialist comrades had been selected and transported for duty in the Korean theater. My assignment and duties turned out to be with the 928th Headquarters Company located near Ware, Hertfordshire, England, just 25 or so miles from the center of London town. Oh yes, oh yes. It was the best of all possible assignments I could have hoped for. Thank God. Thank God Almighty. I had been sent to the companies the others were sent to the companies the others were sent to, like the 817th Engineer Aviation Battalion at Chevelston, England, where an airfield was under construction, or the 105 air bases in England, where similar aviation battalions were constructing airfields. That would have been a most uncomfortable assignment for me. Oh, had I been sent to one of those, it would have been very uncomfortable because I would have been housed in a Quonset hut or a tent. And I would have found myself engaged in constructing air, walking in almost knee-deep mud wherever I would have turned. It was the 928th Engineer Aviation Group's headquarters company to which I was assigned, the command center for the 817th and 3 other battalions, and also the 2 maintenance and supply companies listed below. So these are a bunch of supply company, Army. Where did it go? He told me what this was a minute ago. Oh, here it is. No, shit, I'll tell you. It's like this. It was an Army unit attached to the Air Force. Okay, Army unit with the Air Force, basically. And so there was the 801st at Molesworth. There was the 803rd at Stansted, Mount Fitchett. There was the 804th at Elvington, the 817th at Chevelston, the 620th at Chevelston, and the 916th at Chevelston. So those are a bunch of units all stationed in the UK. Instead, as pointed out earlier on, I was assigned to Collier's Inn Camp in Hertfordshire, where, as good fortune would have it, I served in Headquarters Company, the 928th Engineer Aviation Group, otherwise known as SCARWAF, as the administrative assistant to the Judge Advocate General for all SCARWAF soldiers in Europe. When I arrived, Collier's Inn Camp was under the command of the Air Force. The United States Air Force became a separate branch of the military under the National Security Act on September 18th, 1947. During the 50s, certain construction units were required by the USAF, United States Air Force units that had not yet been formed under the USAF banner. Army Engineer Aviation Battalions were formed and consequently assigned to the Air Force expressly to build airfields throughout Europe. These units were designated, there it goes here, Special Category Army with Air Force, or SCARWAF. Yeah, it's a long name. That's why they had to give it a bunch of letters. More alphabet soup for you. I must take time to mention here that my failed attempt to avoid the draft by joining Air Force ROTC when I was a freshman at Kent State had now come full circle. For now, here I was, a special category soldier in the Army's Corps of Engineers and attached to the U.S. Air Force of all things. It is indeed strange how Providence actually corrects errors committed by those of us who have happened to have gone astray. Below is a brief historical overview of Headquarters Company, the 920th Engineer Aviation Group, Collier's Inn Camp, Ware, Hertfordshire. Okay. Yeah. We're going to skip this part here, this historical overview, because it ain't brief. He said it's brief, but it's not brief at all. Okay. Matter of fact, it's a long quote. While on board the troop ship destined to deliver me to where I was going to be stationed, Headquarters Company, 920th Engineer Aviation Group, 2 momentous events occurred. Where is that? Just as I was about to disembark in the UK at Southampton, just as I was about to disembark in the United Kingdom at Southampton. First, the Korean War was drawing to an end. After 3 years of conflict, on July 27, 1953, This news caused me to mumble a silent prayer for my former classmates who had been assigned to the Korean theater. Second, I had arrived in England a few months after Queen Elizabeth II was coronated on February 2nd, 1953. She had acceded to the throne after her father, George VI, died on June 2nd, 1952. I still have in my possession a 5-crown silver coin emblazoned with her image and minted in her honor. Don't recall seeing that here, but I guess it's here somewhere. Shortly after I arrived on July 6, 1953, at Collier's End Camp, the U.S. Army Air Force relinquished its command of the base and left. Where the officers and enlisted men went, I never asked. In fact, troopers like me were eternally pleased to be free of the air boys, not only because they wore Air Force blue, but rather because we could take over the whole base, especially their barracks, which were larger, more securely constructed, and of all things had more comfortable beds. Moreover, the number of troops housed on the base was 200 when I arrived. When the Air Force Command left, there were only 100 servicemen remaining, including officers. This reduction in force also meant easier access to the mailroom, the dispensary, the showers, post office, the PX, the post exchange. That is, fewer soldiers vying for the reduced prices in the post shopping center. Right, you have the BX and the PX and the BXs, depending on what kind of base you're on. You might have a PX or you have a BX. There's another thing they call it too, but I can't think of what it is. But that's where you can go and buy anything, any kind of supplies you want, alcohol, different things like that. Since I was joining troopers who were engaged in administrative functions, there was little or no need for KP or kitchen police duties, such as peeling potatoes, washing dishes and pots and pans. These functions were reserved for British workers or used as punishments assigned for short periods to recalcitrant soldiers. The cooks were always Americans, for the British had cultivated taste buds that were vastly different from mine and the other soldiers. All of us on board the USS Henry Gibbons troop ship had been trained as we approached Southampton, England, the debarkation point, and bunked for 3 days in Shaftesbury, to be polite and respectful. Don't upset the Brits. We were in someone else's country, so we had to be on our P's and Q's. And that's another term you can look up later. But we're going to end right about there because our time is up. Definitely is up at this point. And we'll carry on here. We'll pick up from there tomorrow with Tales of SCARWAF. Tales of SCARWAF. And meanwhile, you all know what to do to bring me a smile. Go ahead and make a little donation. Just a little one will bring me a real big smile. Make it below. If you're looking on Facebook, there's a link right below. If you're not, go to the website, www.blakfacts.org. Make a donation there. There's a link at the top of the page. You'll see it up there. It's a little tab. Click the tab, go to the donation page, make your donation there. We really appreciate it because we can use every single dime, and we are putting it to good use. You know, this paper is not free. This document here is 600 pages. We're not going to read the whole thing. We only printed out 300 pages, but it does add up. Okay? Everything costs money. Nothing is free, except the best things in life. You know how it is. Meanwhile, we'll be black here tonight at 9. We'll see you then, and everything will be fine. From now until then, we hope that you go the rest of your day with a real big grin from your ear to your chin. Peace out.